Okay, you need to simplify the expression here in this assignment. You have a to the third times a to the 10th times a. Might as well put a first right now on that a. Make 3 lines, please. Underline the expression. So you have a, so just put a. Now you have 3 factors, so you go 3 plus 10 plus 1. That's 14. So you end up with a 14th power. It's positive, so it does not go opposite. And it cannot be simplified, so it will stay a to the 14th. Okay, next problem. We have a fraction, we have a division line. On top we have y to the 7th. Underneath we have y to the 3rd. Okay, make your 3 lines. So on top you have an y factor. On bottom you have a y factor. So on top you have a 7. Bottom you have a 3. You get rid of this with y and if you have a y on top, y on bottom, you got to get rid of one of them. The one with the smaller exponent, minus 3. You're like, oh, I thought it was 7 minus 3. Whatever was there. 7 minus 3 is 4. That's a positive. It stays where it is. It does not simplify y to the 4th. Okay, next problem, we got a parentheses. Inside we have 5b to the 2nd, and then to the 5th outside. So I underline the expression. The only factor you have is b. 2 times 5, you got to do inside, outside. It's 10. It's positive, it'll stay in the same place. So b to the 10th is what we have. Okay, now next problem. I have a parentheses. Inside I have a division line. On top of the division line I have 5x to the 10th. Under the division line I have 3x to the 3rd. Then outside the parentheses I have 3, a 3rd power. So division line's already there for me. So on top I have 5 times x. And then I have 5's to the, and then on bottom we have 3 times x. Okay, so on top I got a 1. 1 times 3 is 3. X, 10 times 3 is 30. Then on bottom, 3 times 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Okay, you don't have a 3 on top, so that's 3 is going to stay. But the x, you got x 30th, x 9. 9 smaller than 30. So you subtract 9. 30 minus 9 is 21. Okay, that's positive, it stays where it's at. That's positive, it stays where it's at. That's positive, it stays where it's at. Now on top we have 5 to the 3rd times x to the 21st. So the 5 to the 3rd can be simplified. 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So this now becomes a 125, and then the variable factor trails. Bottom, you got 3 to the 3rd. That can be simplified. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Nothing you can multiply on top, so you just circle it. Okay, next problem. We have a parentheses. Inside we have 6y to the 3rd, parentheses closes, and outside we have a 2nd, times 4y to the 10th. So, create your own division line. There's nothing under it. So on top we got 6 times y times 4 times y. So we just write 6 times y times 4. Don't write the y. You don't have anything on bottom yet. Okay. So 6, there's only one 6 factor. It's to the 1st. 1 times 2 is 2. Now there are 2 y factors. So you do the one on the left first. So 3 times 2 is 6. Plus, and then just a 10. That one's not in parentheses. So 6 plus 10 is 16. Okay, now 4 is to the 1, but don't take 1 times 10. The 1's not, it's 4 to the 1st isn't in parentheses, so it's just 1. Okay. All these are positives, so all of them stay where they are. Okay, so 6 to the second, y to the 16th, and 4 to the first. These two can be simplified. 6 times 6, and then 4. 6 times 6 is 36. So this is replaced with 36. And the 4 to the first is just replaced with 4. And that variable factor y to the 16th trails. So out of all that stuff, I can multiply the 36 by the 4. Okay, 144. Times y to the 16th power. Okay, next problem. Make your own division line. You have a parentheses. You have 3a to the second inside and a third power outside, times another parentheses with 5x to the second and a third. Okay. Okay, so it's all on top to start with. 3 times a times 5 times x. Okay. So 3 times a times 5 times x. So 3 is to the first power, so 1 times 3 is 3. Now a, only one a factor, to the 2, 2 times 3 is 6. 5 is to the 1, that's 1 times 3 is 3. Now scan the problem, this is my only x I have on top. 2 times 3 is 6. They're all positive, they will all stay where they are. So 3 to the third, a to the sixth, 5 to the third, x to the sixth. Okay, so out of these four factors, I can simplify the 3 to the third and the 5 to the third. So 3 times 3 times 3, 5 times 5 times 5. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So this is replaced with 27, and this is replaced with 125. Times a to the sixth times a to the sixth times x to the sixth. Sorry. Then I can multiply the 27 by the 125. Those are constants. 3,375. Okay, next problem, we have a parentheses. Inside we have x divided on division line with x on top, y on bottom, and then after the parentheses we have a 4. So on top you just have an x factor, on bottom you have a y factor. So on top you have a first, 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 4 is 4 on bottom. That's positive, it stays where it is. That's positive, it stays where it is. Okay, and you can't simplify either one of those, and that's the answer. X to the fourth over y to the fourth. Okay, my next problem, I have a parentheses, and inside of the parentheses I have a division line. Now on top I have 10 a to the fourth, b to the second. On bottom I have 2a to the second, b, and then a second power outside. So on top we have 10 times a times b. On bottom 2 times a times b. So top, it's all in parentheses, so you have to do the inside outside with the 2 on all of them. So 1 times 2 is 2. A, 4 times 2 is 8, and on B, 2 times 2 is 4. Now on bottom, 2 to the first, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, now we can't cross out any 2's, we can cross out A's. I got an 8 and a 4, so you cross out the 4, subtract it, 8 minus 4 is 4. B to the fourth, b to the second, you get rid of your smaller b, b to the power minus 2, and that's 2. So let's talk about the top. That's positive, it stays where it's at. Positive, stays where it's at. Positive, stays where it's at. Positive, stays where it's at. Don't move it if it's positive. So on top, 10 to the second times a to the fourth times b to the second. 10 to the second can be simplified. That'd be 10 times 10, which would be 100. And then the variables trail. There's nothing I can multiply, so now I move to the bottom. 2 to the second can be simplified. That's 4. Okay. Leave it in fraction form. Okay, next page. We have 8 to the negative third. Underline it. So the only factor you got is 8. It's to the negative third. Okay, so obviously we don't have anything on bottom to cross out, so we're good. We move that as a negative. It has to move to the opposite side, so 8 goes to the bottom, and it changes to a positive 3 when it does that. You don't leave it negative 3. 8 to the third is 8 times 8 times 8, and that's 512. So this is replaced with 512. Now the top, you don't have anything, so you need to put a 1. When the top ends up with nothing, you need to put a 1 there. Okay, next problem, we have a parentheses. Inside we have a division line. We have a 5 on top, a 6 on bottom, and then a negative second power out there. So on top you got a 5 factor. On bottom you have a 6 factor. 5's to the 1 inside. 1 times negative 2, negative 2. 1 times negative 2, negative 2. Now this one's kind of weird. That's a negative, so you need to move it to the opposite. So you got to move the 5 to the bottom so that the negative 2 can be a positive 2. Now underneath, that's negative, so you move it opposite. Well, it's on bottom now. What's the opposite of the bottom? The top. Now it's positive 2. So yeah, go bottom, top, top, bottom. Then 6 to the second needs to be simplified. 6 times 6 is 36. 5 to the second can be simplified. 5 times 5 is 25. 36 over 25. Okay, next problem. We have 4x to the negative sixth, y to the third. No parentheses, so there'll be no inside-outside multiplying. Okay, so everything's going to be on the top, so you got 4 times x times y. Remember, no inside-outside. They're not in parentheses, none of them. So that's a 1, a negative 6, and a 3. That's positive. You bring it you keep it where it's at. This is negative. You got to apply the opposite. So you move x to the bottom, and when you do that, you make the negative 6 a positive 6. That's positive, so you keep it where it's at. So on top, you got 4 to the first times y. Well, 4 to the first gets simplified. That's 4. And then the variable factor trails. X to the 6th. Okay, next one, we got a parentheses. Inside, we have 4a to the third, b to the negative fourth, and then a second. Underline it. So you got 4 times a times b. So 4 to the first, 1 times 2 is 2. Then a, 3 times 2 is 6. Then b, negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And we don't have anything on bottom, so we just go about, we don't cross anything out. Okay, that's positive, keep it where it's at. Positive, keep it where it's at. Negative, it's got to go opposite to the bottom so that it can be rewritten as a positive 8. Okay, on bottom, 4 to the second times a to the sixth. The 4 to the second can be simplified. That's 4 times 4, and that's 16. A to the sixth trails, b to the eighth stays. Okay, next problem, we have a 10 on top, and then a division line, and then on the bottom of the division line you have 3x, and then a negative third outside. So you have a 10 factor on top, and then on bottom you got 3 times x. So 10's to the 1, but that's not in the parentheses, so it's just 1. Okay. 3 is in parentheses, so I apply a 1 and do the inside-outside. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. X, I apply a 1 inside-outside. 1 times negative 3 is negative 3. Okay, so on top, that's positive. Bring it over. 3, okay, that's negative. You put OPP for opposite, so that the opposite of the bottom, it's on bottom now. The opposite of bottom is top. So you bring 3 up, and then its exponent becomes positive 3. Opposite on that one too, because it's a negative power. Bring it to the top, becomes positive 3. So you have 10 to the first, 3 to the third, x to the third. I can simplify the 10 to the first and the 3 to the third. 10 to the first is 10, and 3 to the third would be 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. So replace that with 10, and replace this with 27. Then x to the third. Now, can you multiply something? Yeah, 10 times 27 would be 270. 270 times x to the third. Okay, next one, we have a big division line. Now on top we have a parentheses, and inside we have 4x to the negative third, and we have a negative 2 outside, then a y to the 6 outside. Now under the division line we have x to the 8th and y to the negative 4th. So my top factor is 4 times x times y. Bottom, you have x times y. Remember, if some of you are thinking you don't put an x twice, I thought, yeah, on top you don't put it twice, or on bottom you put it. When you go to the bottom, you start over. Okay, so 4, only one factor of 4 on top. It's to the 1, but it's in parentheses. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. There's only one factor of x on top. Negative 3 times negative 2 is 6. There's only one factor of y on top. It's to the 6th. Now bottom, you have x to the 8th, not in parentheses. Parentheses is just here. And then negative 4. Okay, now you can cross some things out, I hope. Okay, you couldn't on this one because you didn't have a 3 on top. You didn't have an x on top. Now, when you have an x on bottom and top, you get rid of the smaller one. So minus 6, and 8 minus 6 is 2. 6 and negative 4. Negative 4 is smaller. So we put minus parentheses negative 4. If we're minusing a negative, put it in parentheses. So like I did there. Plus plus. 6 plus 4 makes 10. Okay. Okay, so 4 to the on top we have 4 to the negative second. Well, that has to go to the opposite. It goes down here, so it's 4 to this regular second. Y to the 10th stays where it's at. It's already positive. X to the second stays where it's at. Okay, so 4 to the second would be y to the 10th stays like it is, and on bottom you can simplify the 4 to the second. 4 times 4 is 16. So where that was 4 to the second, now we're going to put a 16 times x to the second. Okay, next one, we have a parentheses. Inside we have 5y, and outside the parentheses you have a negative 3. Okay. Okay, so you have 5 times y on top. Then you put a 1, 1 times negative 3, negative 3. 1, 1 times negative 3, negative 3. We don't have anything on bottom. Okay, it looks like a negative exponent to me. You got to make it opposite by moving it to the bottom and making its exponent into a positive. Likewise on this one, you have to do the same thing. Move it to the bottom and it becomes positive. So 5 to the, we don't have anything on top, okay, so we put a 1. Now on bottom, 5 to the third, y to the third. 5 to the third you can simplify. 5 times 5 times 5, that's 125. Times y to the third. Okay, last one's an easy problem. Y to the negative second. So you just have the factor of y, a negative 2. You got to do opposite, means move it to the bottom, y2. Now on top you put a 1, y to the second you can't simplify, it's just 1 over y to the second.